I would say the most special part of our Constitution is the preamble, because it's very clear that it gives us a blueprint of a new society that is governed more democratically, that is based on social justice, and is based on fundamental human rights.
What did it mean to you as a young person being involved in that process, in breathing life into this and hoping for a brighter future?
It was amazing, and I would not trade it for anything. In fact, around the same time, I got a scholarship to go and study at Harvard. And I didn't take it because of this once-in-a-lifetime privilege to shape a society. De jure, South Africa belongs to all who live in it. De facto, South Africa belongs to those who have land, who have money, and have the means to protect that.
When you were the public protector, did you feel a heavy burden that what you were looking into was exposing actions that were going against the Constitution, going against all the optimism of '94, especially since it stemmed from a president or a movement that was the revolutionary liberation movement that had all that hope? Tell me about that impact on you.
Certainly as public protector, I did find myself caught up in this storm where the people who should be at the forefront of using every cent to free the potential of every person and improve the quality of life of all citizens were sometimes at the forefront of diverting those resources to either themselves or to their proxies, being business people or family members. And we must be honest that corruption, indifference, and ineptitude have been huge factors in preventing the realization of the constitutional promises. And yes, as public protector, that saddened me. Also saddened me that then I had to make findings against people I loved, liked, and had respected. But I had to choose justice over my personal feelings about those people.
I'm not sure if some of those people you loved, liked, and respected were among those who smeared you quite publicly. I mean, some people like to rewrite history now. In their opposition to Jacob Zuma, they want people to forget that they were defending him, and part of defending him at that time included using some colorful terms against the public protector. I remember reading about you being a CIA agent. I can confirm I don't see any signs of that in here. Did that hurt you? Tell me about how that felt.
No, certainly the smear campaigns hurt me very deeply. Of course, I knew that it is just that, a smear campaign, but I was worried that some lunatic who feels aggrieved by what they think I did, and or somebody just genuinely who lost people during the struggle might think I was part of their loss and think they would be doing justice if they either harmed me or harmed my family, whatever they found possible to do. But I believe in God, and I always think that sometimes corporate prayer has such a power, and that despite all of these efforts that were aimed at making me look counter-revolutionary, it was very clear that they had everything going in the National Intelligence Services except intelligence. Because there were 3 spy stories. None of them made logical sense, literally. None of the 3 spy stories. But worst part of it is they didn't, there was no synergy between them. The first spy story was I was just only CIA, and basically some judge was writing my judgments, who was also part of the CIA, writing my reports. In the second spy story, I had been a spy since I was a student in Swaziland, but my handler was not now the first one. The one in the first spy story was some white person who came to Swaziland 2 years after I left. And then the last spy story was the most ridiculous of them all. I was spying against my fellow public protectors in the rest of Africa, simply to find out which government hates America. Stupid mission, but also stupid process, because if you want to know who hates America, you're not going to choose public protectors, because there's arm's length between a public protector and government.
There were 2 reports that are seen as pillars in the fight against state capture that were integral in creating the phrase state capture that we all use now. Even ANC politicians use it. They say, well, we had state capture, but now we're moving forward, right? Secure in Comfort report and state of capture, two reports. In your words, what were those reports ultimately about, and how much of an impact did they have on the state of this democracy?
Right, I would say the first report, which was Nkandla, Secure in Comfort, was about abuse of entrusted power for private gain, which Transparency International defines as corruption. But our definition of corruption is a country requires real criminal intent, etc. And therefore we couldn't really nail it on corruption, but at least the report ensured that we got some of the money back and called it for what it was. The second report, on titled State of Capture, was about hijacking strategic parts of the state and repurposing them again for private gain. And this was a case where the president, together with a particular family called the Gupta family, had a relationship which was business in nature. And this relationship was leveraged to decide who gets appointed in state affairs, who gets fired for standing in the way or not, or refusing to cooperate, and who got appointed. And as you know, that case started with the Minister of Finance being just arbitrarily fired and replaced with somebody who rocked up with 2 people who have been confirmed by the courts in these cases that have already been settled by companies that they were Gupta people. And so the process was about having a shadow government, but we should be careful. South Africa had a shadow government during the Broederbond. So the whole idea of hijacking the state for by a private group or private person is not new. In fact, even the term was not invented in South Africa. It started being used in America, and which led to what was referred to as sunshine laws, where we make sure that people who work for government record all meetings, and if possible, some meetings are open to the public to make sure that we know about all deals. So yes, the Guptas are gone, but state capture is still possible by them and by other groups in society, so we shouldn't assume that.
I know you're no longer the public protector, you're no longer actively investigating this, you're a law professor here in Stellenbosch, but do you see the echoes of state capture still prevalent?
I think so, and that's not surprising that there may be echoes of state capture, because if I'm captured, I would appoint Dai, who's part of my spider web. Dai would appoint people who are part of his spider web. And so the entire system is a spider web that is facilitating state capture. So you saw that at ESCOM, you saw that at SAA, SABC, PRASA, etc. Now, if you remove the CEO and the boards and the ministers and the president who resigned on his own accord, the spider web is still left there.
It's harder to dismantle the web.
It is. I suggested amnesty, and people thought I had my own people that I want to protect. I just thought that if we allow people to disclose and we let them go free with some kind of restitution from them, then we would be cutting them off from the tentacles of those outside. Because now they're afraid of being exposed.
Sure, but people want justice, right? When there's a lot of South Africans say there's the Zondo Commission and R1 billion is spent, which it was R1 billion spent on the Zondo Commission, right? Which in dollars is more than 50 or about $50 million. Am I right? $50 million. Yeah. So people say, well, there's all these inquiries into corruption, but we don't see people going to jail. And even if the President Zuma went to jail for something else, he's quickly out of it, even though it was tangentially connected to it. So people look at it and they say, well, how serious can this be if you don't see anybody who's high profile actually in jail facing the full force of the law? That's the public losing trust in the justice system. That's the opposite of amnesty, yes?
I understand why people are unhappy. There has been some justice. I know that some of the companies that were involved in this, at SARS, at ESCOM, etc., have admitted their involvement and paid back some of the money. Just for the sake of integrity, I won't mention those companies, but they have paid, and there was justice, maybe not full justice, but a certain level of justice. Then the question of people going to jail, you need evidence.
Was there not enough evidence?
From our side, we had
Jacob Zuma and other senior members.
It depends how the NPA deals with the evidence. For me, there was enough circumstantial evidence to prosecute President Zuma on the basis of the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act. In that, he personally appointed this minister that was linked to the Guptas. He personally, when the banks closed the accounts of the companies that were co-owned by his son and the Guptas. He got cabinet to investigate that, which is not a matter of cabinet to come to rescue of any individual company. So for me, there was enough there, but it's up to the NPA to interpret the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act and also look at the flow of the money. It is difficult to prove fully corruption because you've got to also prove there was a benefit. And a lot of the money that has flown in South Africa has flown through money laundering channels. You spoke about the web. The web in state capture went from here to India to Dubai, back to the country. And it's very difficult. If you look at, for example, the dairy matter in Free State, Freddie Dairy matter, it's difficult to say, when I pay you money, that, let's say me and you have a corrupt deal, but...
Do we want to talk about this off camera?
Sorry. Maybe, let me not say me and you. Maybe let me say A and B have a corrupt deal. And A and B have a corrupt deal, but the payment has to be done by company C. And then when company C pays, doesn't pay A and B. Company C pays somebody else for a putative contract. So somebody, for example, in Praza was paid $1 billion and there was not much explanation of where that money went to. And then what happens is then that money gets laundered. It gets paid to companies offshore. And then when it comes back, it's clean. But again, it's inflated. So I could be hired as a consultant, but paid $1 million for just one consultancy deal, one piece of advice. But who is to say that I'm not worth $1 million?
But here's the thing, I think, and this is obviously beyond the purview of legal discussion, it's just a political and economic fact, is that we can't follow the money and see exactly or prove who benefited. But if it's R1 billion of money that's in the system of government in South Africa, we know who was prevented from benefiting from it as the South African people. So big picture, zooming out, how much damage do you think all those activities during those years of state capture did to this country, this economy, the poor people still living in shacks, and this country not meeting the ideals of the Constitution?
Well, let me start with the fact that we can't tell who benefited. From a lifestyle audit point of view, you can tell who benefited. If there's a deal that was made illicitly for $1 billion and suddenly A's daughter is employed in that company and made a director, it's very clear there's a link. Suddenly A's wife or husband, if A is a woman, is employed, is given a house to live in for free. So it's possible to show who benefited. It's a question of, can you prove it's a criminal benefit? So you could hold people accountable on ethics then if you can't hold them accountable criminally. But when it comes to who lost, it's very clear. With Nkandla, it was very easy because money literally was taken from an urban renewal project that was supposed to create jobs and
there
fix
was a clear
Durban.
pot.
So it was a very clear, and the whistleblower and internal lady said, but we can't. Firstly, this project was supposed to take much less money, and we're far ahead. We've used far too much money than what was budgeted for. But the urban renewal project is essential, and she was just kicked out of the procurement process. So there we can tell very well that there was a choice to enrich people over urban renewal and providing young people with jobs. With state capture, you can see the impact on toll trains and all of those things, and Eskom being dysfunctional. You can see the impact. But that's a story that needs to be told to what I refer to as the Gogo Dlamini of our country, who in other countries would be referred to as a Joe Public or Joe So. The ordinary person has to be able to understand that people who go into politics and clean themselves up and come back into the system as messiahs, you need to go back to yesterday and say, but when you had a choice between improving my life and improving yours illicitly, you chose to improve yours illicitly. You chose to improve the lives of your proxies illicitly. What makes me think now, when you come back into the system, you will choose to use the money meant to improve my life, and to improve the life of my neighbor, because as long as there's injustice somewhere, there can't be sustainable peace anywhere. So every average citizen has to be concerned about justice, about inclusive development, because I quoted Joseph Stiglitz earlier, who speaks about where there's injustice or underdevelopment, crime follows. And even your ability to try and get a handle on crime and criminality is constrained when everyone is poor and everyone is aggrieved by the system. So everyone then just thinks if you can grab something, then anyway, those in government are stealing too. It's just that they're not stealing literally.
Right.
So maybe you might as well steal or look the other way if somebody is stealing.
In your position as public protector, you exposed corruption in power. Many people believe the position of the public protector and the office of the public protector was tarnished by your successor. Do you agree with that?
Well, I would agree that many people do believe that the office was tarnished by my successor. And it's not for me to judge whether they are right or wrong. I would say, though, to government, next time you choose a public protector, it doesn't look good when, firstly, the nomination was from the presidency, which was the first time in the history of any nomination, whether it's the judiciary or the public protector, to have a junior official in the presidency do the nomination. And secondly, to pick a person directly from the equivalent of the CIA, because she, at the time, was appointed as public protector, was working as an analyst in the State Security Agency. So the mindset of people who are employed in the State Security Agency is clearly not the mindset you want for a public protector or a judge, because the mindset of somebody who's a public protector is protecting this public, not the state.
Right. South Africa and the world. Do you believe South Africa's case against Israel at the ICJ is a sound one?
I do believe that the case of South
Why?
Africa and the ICJ is a sound one, because clearly the convention on the prevention and punishment of the crime of genocide forbids the mass killing, mass displacement, and prevention of people from living a normal life, a quality of life. And the acts of Israel clearly include mass killing of people, mass displacement of people. People can't be giving birth in the circumstances. People can't have a normal life because virtually the 2.3 million people of Gaza have been displaced. And if you're talking about the convention being about keeping a life and livelihood, there's no livelihood in Gaza, even if the war were to stop right now. There's virtually no infrastructure. Every university has been destroyed, schools have been destroyed, mosques have been destroyed, hospitals have been bombed and destroyed, lecturers have been killed, doctors have been killed. So basically, the crime of genocide is basically a crime that protects the freedom of people to live. And that living is firstly just to be alive, to be able to breathe, but secondly, to live as a community. And Gaza will not be able to live as a community after this. And the ICJ has not once, but thrice said that Israel's conduct plausibly constitute genocide.
It's been fascinating exploring your legal mind, Professor Thuli Madonsela. You make me want to sign up for law school. Maybe you'll find me in Stellenbosch someday. Thank you so much for your time.